So we've wrapped up all the outcomes of the L cluster and what can happen to your empire in case you decide to open the gate. But this video is to answer the question, should you open the gates to the L cluster? And this is kind of a difficult question to ask because statistically it's not a good idea. Why? Well, we can take a look at the initializer for the L clusters. At the start of the game, the L cluster outcome will be automatically decided for you. So it's not like you're playing a game of blackjack and the house basically says, oh yeah, this is my hand. The house already knows what the hand is going to be. You just have to decide whether or not you want to call the hand, so to speak. So in just to, put things into perspective here, the L cluster by itself has 4 outcomes. It's got the Grey Goo Crisis, which is of course the Grey Tempest. It's got Dragon Season, and it's got Grey Goo Empire. Also, there is the Empty/Grey event chain. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting because at the start of the game, a random list will be generated with a certain amount of points, specifically around 140. Now, it's a range. The game will roll a die and basically say, hey, from this range to this range, you will get this event. So to put things into perspective here, of that range of 140, 50 of that will be the Grey Goo Crisis, as in the Grey Tempest. There'll be a 30 chance that there is going to be the Grey event, as in the Grey cluster or the L cluster is going to be empty, and you will get the best character in the game, even though that's not guaranteed at that point. It's similar for Dragon Season, which is 30 as well, and for the Grey Goo Empire, which will give all the resources to you, and you could potentially conquer, even though they will not come out of the gates to go and kill you. So yeah, at that rate, 140, a range of 140 and 50 of that. So there's a 33% chance, a little bit more, that you will get the Grey Tempest bashing in your doors. Is this a good thing? Well, from my perspective, I think it's totally worthwhile to open up the doors with a small caveat. You should always have a fleet of at least 30k on standby, maybe even 2 fleets of say 20 and 20 to have them there just in case the Grey Tempest decides to bust out of the L cluster. Now, of course, Dragon Season is pretty great. The best one, like I mentioned, is the Empty cluster because A, you get the best character in the game, and on top of that, you will have the only gate that can go into the L cluster for a certain amount of time, and you can colonize the place, basically creating a lifeboat empire where you can put all your stuff in case of the final crisis or Awakened Empires hit. So let's put it into perspective here. There is, of that range of 100 and, a range of 140, 90 of that is relatively positive. Now, Dragon Season's interesting. You get a couple dragons. Everybody get dragons. Dragons for everybody, because as many dragons there are, that's as many L gates there are. So if you have 2 L gates, then you're in a really good spot. Then the Grey Goo Empire, like I mentioned, they will just give you all the resources and you can just leave them alone, and you will have a huge upper hand to pretty much anybody around you. The only scenario where things become bad is when the Grey Goo Crisis starts and you will be forced to invade the L cluster. Now, I know that a bunch of people play multiplayer games and they've got house rules saying do not open the L cluster before a certain time, and everybody agrees to open up the place. But I don't really agree with that. I actually feel that it's much more fun just to bust open the place and basically be like, hey, I'm in here first. I'm going to go and claim this entire place whilst my other science ships are just researching everything they can. Because the resources in the L clusters cannot be overlooked. Even if the place is empty or you got Dragon Season, you will get so many of these strategic resources that you can trade to other empires for normal resources that really becomes worth your while. Yeah, the Grey Tempest, sure, it can come in and knock you on your ass, but the chance of that happening are relatively slim. It's like 40%-ish, which is decent. It's better than you will get at that house house game of blackjack that we talked about earlier. But yeah, should you open the gate? This is all up to you. I recommend that you do, because it's fun. And you played for Distant Stars, so you may as well open up the gates. See what happens. Maybe you will get dragons. Maybe you will get the best character in the game. Maybe there will just be an empire hanging out. Or a whole bunch of stuff that will try to ruin your shit. But hey, what can you do? Anyway, put your ideas below. Feel free to have some commentary on this, because I'm really curious about what you guys think when it comes to the L clusters and whether or not you should open up the gate, because it's a bit of a difficult question. And yeah, from my perspective, just knock in the door. What's the worst that could happen? Until next time, take good care of yourselves and each other.